I wonder.
Oh, there we go. Oh. Hey, y'all, welcome to the Midweek Fix. Pastor Toby Chalk knocks on the water boy. Tomorrow night, we're going to be at a live show at Raining Grace Ranch in Arizona. Excited. Yes. Hope you guys, I'm sure there's a couple tickets probably left that you could buy, maybe like 3. Go to fightlifefeast.com, click on shop, and we'll see you in Arizona.
Just come and just offer us stuff to come in. We'll consider all offers, you know.
Will you baptize my baby?
Yeah, all right, hold on. There's no water in Arizona. We'll do it.
We'll do it.
Hey, with us on the show, we are glad. It's been too long.
Yes.
It's been too long to have AD in the studio. AD actually in Zoom in the studio. AD Robles, he is the host of AD Robles Show on our network.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he also started a kind of what do you call it? Like another series.
Yeah.
Called the Rise and Fall.
A special series.
A special series called the Rise and Fall of the Gospel Coalition. And if you haven't kind of watched the Rise and Fall of the Gospel Coalition, this is actually important stuff in the church.
Which I have to say, AD, bro, this was brilliant. I got to give it to you, man. When I first heard about this, I was like, oh, this is going to be funny. Like, he's making fun of the rise and fall of Mars Hill. This is going to be great. Like, I'm going to get funny, AD. And then I turned it on, and you straight up shocked me.
How did he shock you?
Because it wasn't funny.
He's not... but look at that face.
Yeah, it was like going to a Dave Chappelle stand-up comedy bit.
Oh, but he didn't.
And then Dave Chappelle tells you, I'm here to tell you that the world's ending. And you're like,
wait, where's the joke?
And you want to run up and slap Dave Chappelle? Is that
I'm not Will Smith.
Do you want to slap AD right now? Is that what
well, no, AD, I really am interested. So what in the world possessed you? Because I thought it was the rise and fall of Mars Hill. What possessed you to even think, hey, you know it'd be great? Let's do a podcast on the rise and fall of the Gospel Coalition.
Yeah, well, so I got the idea, and I appreciate you noticing that I wasn't my normal, self. I'm trying to experiment a little bit here with a few different things, but I got the idea because I noticed that very regularly evangelical leaders will say very courageous and hard-sounding things about, yesterday's battles that were already won. Right. They're all figured out, and now everyone comes out of the woodwork to kick the dead corpse on the floor kind of thing.
Yeah. Courageous, bold. Yeah.
Right. And so, the rise and fall of Mars Hill was one of those things. And it's an interesting podcast. I'm not saying it's bad or anything. It's fine. But it's just so rare to see someone who's willing to call out, Mars Hill at the time. Because a lot of these guys were supportive of Mars Hill at the time.
Facts.
So I said, look, instead of doing a backwards looking kind of podcast like that, let's do one that looks forward, right? So Gospel Coalition has not fallen, so to say, yet. But I think that there are things that we can kind of point out now that maybe it doesn't have to fall. Maybe the Gospel Coalition doesn't have to fall. Maybe it can just improve. And so this podcast
repent.
Indeed. So this podcast... This podcast is intended to be critical, but also helpful, and to point out things that we can do to maybe change some of the nonsense.
So, what are some of the stuff that you've been tracking that is kind of getting at this rise and fall of the Gospel Coalition? Give me some specifics.
There's so many things, right? So I've only done 2 episodes so far, but the first episode was just sort of what is Big Eva? Who am I addressing here? It's called Rise and Fall of Gospel Coalition, but Gospel Coalition is really a placeholder for the whole evangelical machine, the whole complex.
Okay.
And so that was the first episode. And the second episode is about the 11th commandment, how people are protected. No one is criticized. If you're in the inner circles of the guild, you're off limits. You're, untouchable. It's like the mafia where they've got the made guys. They can do anything and no one can touch them. Mm-hmm. But if you're not in that guild, that's when they start. And that episode kind of dissected the whole situation with Ed Litton's plagiarism. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a especially helpful example because it's so recent and it was so egregious.
Right.
And just nobody would say anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those issues that, evangelicals have actually spoken on in the past. Plagiarism has been spoken on by many, many evangelicals in the past.
It has been spoken on. It has been.
Yes. Yes. Well, and even with the Mark Driscoll stuff, so it's like this is an issue that evangelicals tend to get right, and then
but not
11th commandment kicks in, and
turns
you
out
can't say anything.
Not really. So wait, AD, are you like this is sounding kind of conspiracy theorist sort of lane? Like, are you saying there's like a secret cabal in evangelicalism that is controlling the narrative and is sort of an unelected oligarchy and kingmaker in evangelicalism? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
See, that's the part that freaked me out. No. See, AD, you have to explain this, man, because this is what freaked me out. It really did, because in the first 20 minutes of the first episode, I had to pause. And I don't know if you can do this here, but could you explain then kind of like Big Eva itself and what this cabal is?
It's a very interesting thing. So the very first episode, I interviewed a guy named Judd Saul who made the movie Enemies Within the Church. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen the movie.
I know Judd.
It's a pretty good movie, and the part in it that I asked him about was this kind of cross-pollination that all of the major Big Eva institutions have. Like, everyone that's on the board of such and such organization is also on the board of everything. And so what ends up happening is they kind of play like this musical chairs thing where it feels like it's a lot of organizations. They all got woke at once. But really, it's like a handful of board members that all got woke, and they made it seem like everyone got woke because they're on every board. So there is, and it's not really like that secret, but they don't obviously advertise it as well. It's a very strange kind of thing. And I think that what you end up having is, instead of like in the Catholic Church where you've got official, archbishops and cardinals and official like positions of authority, you've got the same thing in evangelicalism, but it's unofficial. Right. It's something that's completely off the book. So there's no, you got pastors in evangelicalism, and then maybe you've got senior pastors or teaching elders and things. So there's some roles that are official, but then there's extra roles, and that's on these boards of these organizations, conference speaking circuits, things like that. And some of these guys operate like an archbishop would operate.
This sounds like New World Order stuff. Like has he been talking to Alex Newman?
Hold on. So like, can you be more specific? Like,
Sure.
I'm just ignorant of these things. But so, what are the boards you're talking about? What are some of the men you're talking about? I mean, can you name names?
Well, sure. So there's a couple different things going on. So when I talk to Judd, there's specific organizations like the Oikonomia Network, and, various kinds of organizations. If you want to, he's more the expert on that kind of stuff. And, I don't have that off the top of my head. Okay. But what I was thinking of was more of like, almost like these coaching trees that you have, like Al Mohler, for example. He's a made guy for sure. And he's got like a little coaching tree underneath him, where he operates almost as like a captain of a group of guys that are like, these are Al's guys. That's right. And, John Piper's got that as well, and John MacArthur has that. I'm not saying that it's all bad guys that have this. Yeah. This is just how this is just how evangelicalism operates. It's kind of unofficial, but Mohler's a capo in a certain sense of a gang, and you know what I mean. And so if I were to criticize, a guy like Mohler or a guy like Chandler, you can bet that there are certain people that would come after me and protect him. And they've got this whole thing where it's like, again, it's like, it's kind of operates sort of like a mafia. There's certain made guys, and there's certain guys that are allowed to be, touched, I guess you could say.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
It's not like it's an official conspiracy or anything like that. And I'm not necessarily saying it's all the bad guys that are doing this, but there are these unofficial organizations. There's unofficial archbishops in evangelicalism. There's unofficial cardinals in evangelicalism. Those are the kind of guys I'm talking about.
I think I can amen that in a lot of ways. If you look at the Southern Baptist Convention, I think your next one should be the rise and fall of the SBC, because I think that you might be able to do the same thing with them.
Sure.
But if you look at Al Mohler, there's like 6 seminaries inside the SBC SBC seminaries. Yeah. Almost all of them but one, I believe, was appointed by someone that Al Mohler had recommended. Yeah. So you don't get, which was why it was so shocking that he didn't win the SBC president, which is why I think you could say the rise and fall. Well, because something is changing within.
That's what I wanted to ask. So far you've listed this sort of like, okay, informal hierarchy of sorts, But why does that imply a fall?
Right. Yeah. So it would be, everything would be fine. So this is interesting because actually this is kind of funny. At the first Fight Laugh Feast conference, the day we started, John Lehman posted a tweet that was talking about how those who criticize Big Eva have their own institutions. And yeah, he was talking about Fight Laugh Feast and, stuff like that. And some people even call this Little Eva, right?
Wait, what?
We're Little Eva?
You're Little Eva,
I prefer Little Geneva.
Nice, Toby.
But I thought that was funny because Jonathan Lehman wasn't understanding the criticism. It's not that there are these hierarchies or unofficial, institutions. It's just how they behave. So nothing's really wrong with Al Mohler being a capo, so long as that doesn't imply you cannot criticize things that Al Mohler says, which it so often does imply that.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be a fall. Like, look, of course, there's going to be some guys that have, more influence than others, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'll give you an example. Like, obviously, Doug Wilson has influence on all of us in that regard. But you see, I've done episodes of my show where I critique something Doug Wilson said that I didn't agree with. And I never got the phone call from any of you guys. Like, dude, you can't do that.
We just deleted the episode. You just don't even know it. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. And so that's why it doesn't have to be a fall, but the way it operates so often is because it ends up creating this situation where, your friends actually can't be your real friends because they can never actually, iron can never actually sharpen iron.
I see what you're saying.
AD, one of the things that as I was listening to the podcast, I kept thinking that I wanted to ask you was, what is it that they want? What is it that the Gospel Coalition wants to control? You can see the shift in movement. I watched it happen at SBC where you had, what was it? Matt Chandler getting criticized by Rachel Denhollander. And he comes in flying the next day to do PR work on the whole thing. And I watched this weird shift happen right in front of my eyes. And I'm like, whoa, there's some power shift moving happen here.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's as clear inside of evangelicalism what the Gospel Coalition itself is seeking to control inside of evangelicalism. What is that?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the Overton window. Like they want to have a vice grip on what's allowed to be talked about, how it's allowed to be talked about, and there are certain things that, like, if I were a Gospel Coalition writer and I said, that 19th Amendment that really needs to be repealed, I would be lambasted. I would be abandoned in 2 seconds. Because that's way outside of the Overton window. I mean, of course, women should have the right to vote, right? So I think it's just they have like a whole range of topics that are allowed to be discussed, and they want to make sure that they're in control of that. Mm-hmm. The minute you're outside of that is when you get abandoned. That's my opinion, but
to what end, though?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Isn't Can I try? Can I take a stab at it?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it to the 11th commandment thing? I mean, isn't it that they have a particular view of what they consider winsome Christianity? I mean, isn't it that they think, you have to be likable, nice, respectable, and they think that if you're not doing that, then we're not gonna win the culture war as they see it?
So there's a couple different ways to slice it. So yeah, if you want to be really charitable, and I think that's totally fine. They think this is the
whoa.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, that's the nicest way to look at that. That's the way to go.
Very nice. It is though, because it's sort of like a convoluted, sort of sophisticated way of doing the seeker sensitive kind of evangelism, right?
Right.
Very, very, very sophisticated. It's not as simple as having a slide, on your stage to do baptisms in a fun way.
Right.
It's more sophisticated.
Right.
I think that some guys actually do fall there. However, if you talk to a guy like Judd, which, I sympathize with him more and more as the days go by. Some of these guys have nefarious intentions, I think. And I think that some of them know that they're corrupting the law of God and they don't care. And so, but this is the thing, like, I can't say who's who exactly because I just don't know, but I think it's a mix. I think some guys really do view this as an evangelistic sort of seeker sensitive type thing.
Mm-hmm. I would maybe want to add here, sometimes God does bless a movement and it kind of institutionalizes a little bit. That's almost unavoidable if God's, making all this traffic happen. You have to find a way to kind of coordinate and handle it,
Right.
Which is kind of institutionalizing. And it becomes a program and then it becomes a program, or it becomes an institution for institution's sake. So you have the blessing of God upon it. All these people flock to your ministry. You have to kind of organize, which would be the institutionalizing side of it, and then the institution.
And voila, you become a Presbyterian. I'm sorry.
Then the institution needs to exist because the institution needs to exist for the institution's sake. And then you start getting to all these politics where if you start criticizing the institution, well, then you're
Threat to it.
You're a threat to it, or the institution kind of stops believing the gospel. When you actually have sin in the institution, you need to repent and believe. But that repentance looks like it might take away from your institution if you do that.
In the first episode, Judd explained a situation where a guy was the dean of a Christian college or something like that, and he was on the phone with someone who was going to give him a sizable amount of money.
Everett Piper.
I forget. Yeah, right. And, they were talking and everything was fine until they started talking about the LGBT stuff. And he, expressed a biblical understanding of the LGBT stuff. And the donor said, well, you can't talk about that stuff. You can't believe that and have this money. And he turned down the money. You see, the thing is, that could be very damaging to the financial stability of an institution to turn down donors like that. Yeah. And some people, I think, can make a case. Well, I can talk about the biblical case, but I don't have to get too political about it. Just kind of, ease off on some of this stuff and take that money for the sake of the gospel because we're training pastors.
Okay.
I think a lot of guys can try to justify it that way and do attempt to justify it that way. Yeah. And so they have to control the Overton window. They have to control the way things are discussed. Otherwise, they don't get that money.
Wow. And who was that?
Everett Piper. We had him in the studio.
Really?
From Wesleyan in Oklahoma.
Oh, so he was on the phone. He was on the phone with the donor.
Yeah.
And the donor said, "You can't take this.
No, you can't talk about LGBT stuff
in order to take this money."
And so Everett rejected the money.
Good. Good. Okay. All right.
And it wasn't like a couple $1,000s. It was a lot of money.
Sure.
A lot of money.
Oh, absolutely.
As you're looking at this, how many episodes are you thinking about doing, AD?
Man, it's crazy. So I initially started with 10, and This is more to add every day.
Really?
I don't know.
So, but have you gotten the horse head in your bed yet?
No, not yet.
No.
I think it's coming. That's why I was going to ask. It's like, what's your next? Can you lay out without maybe impeding yourself a couple of episodes that you plan on doing? Because,
Yeah, no, I definitely can. So I'm planning on going into some of the issues regarding money transparency and who funds what and why and stuff like that. I do plan on going into that. That's probably going to be one of the last episodes that I'll do, just to kind of keep that.
No, you might want to do that one next because
is George Soros involved in that one?
You might want to do that one next. If they know that was coming last, they might. Let's just end them at 19.
Let's suicide AD.
I've got, I've got episodes planned on the use of NDAs and statements of faith to get people to be quiet. NDAs are used, kind of the way they normally are. Mm-hmm. Statements of faith are used as like a shield. Like, look, I believe this, so therefore I can't be a heretic. And it's like, well, yeah, but you say you don't believe in female pastors, but there's one right there in your church. It's like, well, I believe the statement of faith though.
She doesn't identify as a pastor.
I plan on going into a lot more about how Big Eva operates, right? Like, one example that I want to definitely do is just the silence over the Canadian pastors that were getting arrested. Silence.
That's unbelievable.
Wow. And it's just like, silence is a big tool for Big Eva. You can learn a lot by seeing the things that they refuse to address.
Right.
And sometimes even outright deny. Like there were even some Gospel Coalition articles that said, look, there's no persecution in Canada while this is going on.
Gaslighting them.
And it's right. So some of that kind of stuff.
AD, speaking of silence, just pause right there. Roe v. Wade is looking like it's going to be overturned. And what has been the tone coming from the Gospel Coalition in relation to that topic?
It's bizarre. It's been essentially silence.
Wow.
And I was. Look, there's been some stuff that came out today. Yesterday, I was planning on not doing a video. I was just going to go fishing. And then this whole information about the Supreme Court leak came out. I was like, oh, I guess I got to do a video. I can't wait to see what Big E was going to say about this. I'll do a video. And then I was looking and I just couldn't find anything for like a whole day.
Wow. Yeah.
And, I made a joke in my...
They hadn't consulted with their PR department yet.
Well, that's what I made a joke in my video, like, I guess they're still waiting for George to send them the memo on what to say about this one.
Oh, wow.
But today there's been some stuff, there's been some stuff and most of it is what you'd expect. We got to be consistently pro-life. You also got to be socialist in order to be pro-life, stuff like that.
Wow.
and so seeing some of that, but let me say this though. I'm not claiming credit for this, but since my first episode, I've seen some people in the circles of Big Eva that have started to speak out. I want to call out Andrew T. Walker in particular.
Yeah.
He's one of Al Mohler's guys, and for the last few weeks, he's just been on fire. I mean,
wow.
it was like, and he was calling out the religious nature of the reaction to the Supreme Court thing. That they can't have their blood right anymore. I'm like, where'd you come from? Why are you saying all this stuff? And and he took some heat for some of that stuff, and it's been really good. He was also calling out sort of the many Christians. You guys know this. They're saying we got to de-emphasize the culture war stuff. Ease up. And he said there's such a disconnect between that and the reality that every leftist is bringing the culture war to everything.
Yeah.
And so we're now making Christians feel guilty for something that every leftist is like all over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway, so there have been some guys that have been coming and I think in my not my first episode, but the video I did right before I launched my first episode, I said, look, you could easily end around me. And I would end my YouTube channel. All you got to do is start talking about this stuff, and I'd be out of business.
Yeah, right,
Nobody wants to hear what a YouTuber on this said. They want to hear from evangelical leaders. So you could easily cancel this.
Yeah.
So I'm not claiming credit, but I'm glad to see it. You know what I mean?
That's great. That's really great.
Go download one of the most brilliant podcasts out right now, The Rise and Fall, the Gospel Coalition.
On the Fight Laugh
Feast. On the Fight Laugh Feast app.
App in the network, yeah.
Protect that man at all costs.
You got a security
Get some bodyguards.
You got a security guard.
Appreciate you, AD. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until Sunday, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.